Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like what you see, what you hear. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And let me say how happy I am to have Dermot Kennedy on here. Hello.
How's it going? How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Good.
You've been floating in my orbit for a little while. First off, I got to say that I've seen some concerts since, but you were when people say what was the last concert you saw before the pandemic, that was it. You here in Louisville, Kentucky. You were playing at Paristown, and I was the MC from the station. And
Right.
yeah, so I've been tied to your music ever since then. You've sort of been
Nice
in
one.
my conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. That was an interesting show. I'd love to go back and kind of just put my stamp on it again because that was in the middle of a very long tour. And I can't remember what show we did before. It feels like we kind of fell into Louisville almost. And I would love to just get a proper crack at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and we're going to talk about this year a little bit later on too, but you will be back here August 12th at the Young
Yes.
Center. So much bigger room this time around.
True enough. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I'm just excited to be on that tour to figure out how to play in rooms like that. I know it sounds different. I know it feels different. Everything is just like new. So I just want to learn how that feels. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been doing quite a bit. You're in New York. When I saw on Twitter, I think you posted here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And you ended up in a bar last night, and suddenly you're playing music. Do these things happen to you a lot? Because it sort of feels like maybe you get in these situations.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I would always answer that I'm not that type of person, that situations like that don't find me. But I don't know. I couldn't turn it down. Basically, we were in a bar and there was a guy playing the uilleann pipes and there was a fiddle player and a guitar player. And it was really nice. And to be honest, like nowadays, I love so much being in situations where I get to just listen to people play and not be the person playing music. And but then the guy playing the uilleann pipes came over to me and just really kind of politely said, like, if you feel like doing a song, we're here and whatever you want to do. And so the guitarist loaned me his guitar, which was right-handed, and I'm left-handed, so I played it upside down. And there's like that instantly narrows my set list down a lot. And so I had to, but I played an old Irish song. And yeah, I don't know. I do find myself in situations like that a lot. To be honest, like that's the really enjoyable stuff for me, you know? Like it's funny, I'm lucky enough to go on these big tours and have these big releases and all this sort of stuff that goes with having a career. But like, I don't know, it is, and not in a corny way, it's just that stuff that brings you back to being yourself, you know?
Yeah. Well, you've done a good job of that. I mean, even
Thank
making
you.
big situations very small. And I'll point out the other one where you were in Washington Square Park in December and raising money. But I'll lightly call it busking because I'm sure it's not quite like the busking that you used to do at the before your
No.
career really started.
Yeah, no, I said that, and then it really wasn't. But it was funny because I had a speaker and a microphone that day, like that I hired, and then it was like because obviously there's nowhere you can plug a speaker in Washington Square Park without a bunch of generators and stuff, and so we needed a battery charged one. But then the rental company gave it to us with a dead battery, and so we went to play, and it just wouldn't turn on. And thankfully, I'm very loud when I sing, so that saved me. But like that was nothing like we planned it, but then also that kind of made it cooler.
Yeah. I don't know if the word was passed along to you, but I was there.
No
Um,
way.
by complete coincidence, by the way. Like
Really?
I was in New York with my son, and we were just going here and there, and we ended up in Washington Square, and we'd been hanging out for a while and kept noticing that there was a group of people just standing as a group of people, and we
Right.
walked over. And we stood there for about 5 minutes trying to figure out what was happening. And finally, I asked someone if they knew. And the guy was like, I don't know why we're standing here. Like he was just standing there because it was a crowd too. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, my son had to use the restroom. So we left. And I'm pretty sure probably like 2 or 3 minutes later, you showed up. So I was
Right.
in your crowd. I just didn't see you.
Yeah, yeah. Or hear me probably. But I don't know. It felt like a really cool thing to do, and it felt like the type of thing that I might just make a habit of doing every year. You know, stuff like I said, stuff like that's important when you can actually when you're not in an arena with 20,000 people and you can't see anybody's face, you know. I think you have to work hard to not become disconnected, I guess.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I know you've probably talked about this quite a lot because of where you came from in your roots, but busking was a part of your life. I mean, this was out there, and that's, you know, for the artists that I've talked to have done it, like that can be such a very humbling experience. But do you find that that's where you figured out how to be a performer?
Yeah, totally. And then I learned how to sort of use my voice as a tool that would get people's attention, because that's what I was trying to do all day. And I learned about even choices of songs that would make sure you got a crowd. I learned about how much that kind of bothered me as a purist, you know, because in my head I was like, well, I should be able to play anything, and if it's good, people will stop. But that's just not the case, you know. And there's certain songs people recognize, and that will make them stop. All that sort of stuff. And to this day, that's an ongoing thing, you know. As an artist, you hold on to these values of like, well, if it's good, then nothing else matters about, or you can sort of like go down the road of like, well, this is probably a good idea. And it's just this creative sort of fight you have with yourself the whole time. And so busking sort of introduced me to that, but it showed me how to play to people. But honestly, like, I wasn't any good playing to people then, and I wouldn't say I was any good playing to people afterwards either. Like, in terms of interacting with people and like putting on a show, it's never been me, you know. I like to play the songs, and I hope it's good enough that people are affected in some way. I'm never, some people, you know, the way some people are just born entertainers. It's just not me, you know. Like, I know I can sing, I know I can write good songs, and I just hold on to that.
Well, I would argue that those moments have definitely connected. I mean, just looking at
one.
You know, the music. Geez, you put out the record 2 years ago. I think you said it's still on the charts. You know, it's,
so I believe, in Ireland. Yeah. It's second. Olivia Rodrigo did me in. Yeah.
She did a lot of artists in, to be fair. So
no, yeah, fair play to her. Well, that's the cool thing about her thing. It's global. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and the other thing I want to quickly point out about that, you know, whereas in the early days you might have been looking for a change for yourself in the streets, this time you were raising money. And I think along with some shows you did in Ireland, what I see, $300,000 you raised for various charities.
Yeah. So I believe, and it is just, it's the best feeling, you know. I think again, like I said, it's just when you end up having a career in music and it's something you can do, and your sort of dreams come true in that way, you do find yourself kind of like desperately searching for moments to sort of add meaning to what you're doing, and to sort of make the dream take shape the way you saw it when you were a kid. And it's just, I don't know, that stuff takes me closer to it. So when we play shows in Ireland, and I'm lucky enough to have a platform there, and then we can raise money, and actually, albeit small, like, we make a difference in my hometown, like, that counts for a lot, you know. And I don't know, I think that's what having a platform is kind of for. And I don't know, I'm constantly aware of how lucky I am in every single way, you know, to even just like to get to play music for a job first and foremost, but just to even have a roof over my head at all times, stuff like that. So it's just, you want to just take part, help.
Yeah, it's interesting because some artists might do this and it would feel performative, you know, like they were. Let me say, I don't get that from you, and it's interesting because you seem like a really humble guy, and even the songs you write, like your latest single, "Better Days," which is such a powerful song. It has these messages in it too, which again, under, you know, the wrong artist would not feel real. And I think that's one of the most impressive things about you, is just how real that you feel. Do you ever get people like questioning you being a humble or you know, just that kind of singer, like believing you?
If people think you're like just doing it to do it, like, for, what's the word, just like, yeah, like you said, performative. I don't know. I can't stop and think about it, you know. I think I have to, A, I can't worry too much about what people think. B, I can't, I have to trust that whatever's in my voice, when you're in the studio, you know if it's truthful or not. You just know. It's very obvious to me as an artist. And with that one, that song was interesting because that song felt like it was walking the line a little bit, you know, especially through COVID. I was like, oh God, is this going to be me having a really sort of blatant attempt at like having a COVID anthem, which I didn't want to do. And then, so for me, the song was just better times as a whole. It wasn't just COVID. It was just for anyone who needed a message of hope. And then, but to be honest, it's like I'm playing this song at shows now where people have just like, it's their first show back after the pandemic. It's all these people hoping that things will improve and trusting that things will improve. And that song does sort of take on that meaning. And it feels good. I can't deny it. You know what I mean? So if I were to just sort of self-criticize to the point that I think it's corny, I would just be getting in the way of a beautiful moment, I think.
Yeah. Luckily it doesn't come across that way at all. And not just the
Nice.
words, but I mean, it's got such a cool feeling. Like I was thinking the background vocalists almost feel like an instrument, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think when I started out, it was all just acoustic guitar, lyrics, piano. I saw myself playing shows. The dream was to play shows in theaters where it was all seated and it was just me on stage by myself. And now it's like 7 of us on stage. It's this thing that's grown, and I've always taken so much inspiration from hip hop and sampling and all that sort of stuff. And so I don't know, to have the background vocals like that, it feels exciting, and it takes me out of my comfort zone. It takes me somewhere different. And I don't know, to be honest, as an artist going through the motions and like in the studio all the time, things that make me a tiny bit uncomfortable feel like a positive thing.
Yeah. You and Adele both. She's got her background dancers now too, so you're on the right track.
Yeah.
I also want to pull out another track that you put out last year, but that was a cover. You did Metallica, and Nothing Else Matters. How did you end up in that massive compilation that they put out?
Well, I was just asked, and that song felt like a given for me. You know, it just felt like the one that would fit. And then it was interesting because I did the vocal by myself in LA, and I always find it like, not that I need to have my hand held through these processes, but I often I like to really push on my vocals and have somebody who I know and trust on the other end being like, all right, like it's not going to get better from here on out. But I was just with an engineer I hadn't met before. And so I did it a few times, and we were both just kind of like, I think that was good. Like, I think that one is decent. And he didn't know me. And so he didn't know my standards. I didn't know his standards. And so we were both just kind of like, all right, cool. And so I sang it a few times and then I was gone. But it was lovely, to be honest. It's a great song. And again, anything like that is a bit surreal. And it's just, I'm very flattered to be asked.
Right. Well, I know that band is everywhere, and if you're a fan of music, you know who Metallica is. But at the same time, like, were they one of your coming of age bands in any way?
Probably not. I would be lying to you if I said yeah. Like it would be really dishonest of me if I was like, oh yeah. But no, yeah, like you said, it's just they're globally appreciated, and they're a very important part of music and music history. But no, I wouldn't say it was something that shaped me.
Yeah. Well, it has been interesting because, again, that box set in itself, there's so many artists that I would think if you were a very big Metallica fan, or if you were mostly, stayed in one lane, which who does these days, but, there's so many opportunities to find artists that you wouldn't consider, that's true. I think that was one of the favorite parts about that.
True, for sure. And I think for me, if I was lucky enough to have a career like that, and then I was also in a position where someone would do an album of covers, I would definitely want it to be eclectic and people who had nothing to do with me growing up. I think certainly my influences are so eclectic and strange and varied that I would like it to go that way too if it was the other way around.
Yeah. Well, it's just, one more stop on your release schedule there. And of course, a little bit further back, but Paradise, I mean, I think that came out in 2020, but my God, that has blown up since then. Like, having a song like that become as big as it has during a time as we've had in the past 2 years, are you able to feel that, that whatever that success, that energy is in these moments?
No. And I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say that was a symptom of the pandemic. I'd say that was that's the way I feel. I find it really hard. Anytime I release a song, I'm always it feels like it's 2018. Like it really does. Like I don't feel the growth at all, which is a good thing. I mean, it keeps me level-headed. It keeps me just trying to do my best work. But sometimes I wish I could. Yeah, like that song, I don't know. I think it has like, I think it's nearing like 500 million streams on Spotify, stuff like that. And it just kind of came out of nowhere for me. And so, but yeah, I was just sitting at home the whole time. It's great. But yeah, like I can't, it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, and it's funny because I couldn't tell you that like when I'm on the road and touring that I do feel the growth of these songs, because that's even weirder almost, you know, like when you're just going from town to town and you know you've got a song out there and hopefully it's doing good things. But I find it strange and hard to like sort of notice the growth of my career and just be aware of it. But I think it's a good thing, because to be honest, if I was too aware of it, I think it would affect how I make music maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's funny then the way you said that, because at the same time, you know, you're trying to maybe bring that down a level down, and then you've got, you know, some of the biggest pop stars in the world name checking you. I mean, I saw Dua Lipa, I saw Taylor Swift. Like they're calling you out. Like how does that fit in? How do those conversations go?
It fits in and it's cool, but like I said a second ago, to be honest, like you're always just trying to hold on to that feeling you had when you first started writing songs. I don't know, 16, 17 years old, like that feeling where it's so true and you haven't even been approached by anybody in the music industry. You don't even know what that feels like. And so all you do is make music because you love it and because it feels good. You're just constantly trying to get back to that place. And it's hard because even the second album that I'm working on now, there's all these thoughts of like, this might be a good idea. Like, what's a good idea for a certain amount of tracks in a track list? It's like, who cares? Like, what songs need to be on there? What song feels good? What song just needs to exist? You're just constantly trying to stay in that headspace, and it's not easy, but you're trying to like straddle the two worlds. It's a bit mad.
Sure. Well,
yeah.
Speaking of that second record, that new record, I mean, what can you tell us about that? Because is Better Days sort of a lead in to what we can expect?
I don't know. I think that was when we were like working on Better Days, that was one of the things on our mind. It's like, is this something where you want this to be sort of like, all right, guys, here's the direction, here's the template? I don't think so. I think that song was like a standalone thing. I think for me, what's so important is what first worked for me was connecting with people with a vocal and lyrics. And so what can be crucial for me is taking stuff away and really stripping stuff back to the point that it's only things that are completely essential need to be on there. So for me, it's not as if I'm going into the studio every day being like, get a brass section in, get strings in, get all this stuff in to build it and hit that perfect mix. It's like, no, it's about sort of stripping it back until you find the essence of who you are. Because like we said a while ago, you can just tell when something's real or not. And for me with this second album, it's just about making sure everything is real and having an album that was made through a pandemic and made through a lot of touring and in kind of weird circumstances. It's just about trying to hold on to that feeling. So for me, I wouldn't say Better Days is like a lead in terms of sound or anything. I think I'm trying to do something new.
It's interesting. Well, I'd love to know what that is, especially like, you know, for a lot of artists, I wouldn't say you count on it, but one of the benefits of touring is the added experiences that you can draw from. And without having that, like, have you felt what you're lyrically being able to draw from on this record?
I think so. Like similarly to even musically, the arrangements and stuff, it's been about, even when you're on tours and experiencing some degree of success, it's about taking that away and to make your best music, trying to remember who you truly are, because that's where the songs for the first album come from. You know, it's about constantly trying to get back to your true character or to stay there at least. And so, yeah, it's funny. I find it funny sometimes when artists talk about second album and they're like, well, all I've done is been on a tour bus and been in hotel rooms. And it's like, yeah, cool. But like, you've been on a tour bus because you've been on tour, like playing shows and experiencing people, seeing people's emotions, experiencing all these different parts of the world. And so I find it is very rich in terms of how it fulfills the creative side of you as well. But so yeah, just trying to draw on that. And there's plenty of experiences for me to draw on, but it's about discipline at this point for me too. You know, it's about like constantly writing, constantly thinking, constantly sort of say even being in New York at the moment, like living in such a way that I can be inspired by it instead of just sort of like having my head on my phone, like being on social media all day, like stuff like that. I think it's very important what I put in here so that good stuff comes out.
Yeah. Well, you'll eventually be able to take that on the road, as we've talked about. You're going with Shawn Mendes this summer, which guessing you guys, I mean, is there, if you worked with them, is there a friendship there?
For sure. Yeah. We were in the studio in, I think it's like October maybe. And we actually wrote a song together, and I think it's very good. And yeah, we share a friend in Scott Harris, who we've both written a lot of our songs with, and yeah, he's just a great guy. He's just extremely kind and talented, and like all the stuff I'm talking about like how to handle yourself and deal with everything. Like I don't know how I think he's 23 years old, Shawn Mendes, and so whatever way he sort of conducts himself is it's super admirable. And yeah, so I'm just I'm looking forward to going on tour with a friend and somebody, it's not just this thing where it's like, oh, hopefully this goes well, you just know he's a good guy, and then you can kind of trust that his crew and team reflect that same way mine does. And I think it'll just be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot's going on. You've got a new record on the way, which this year is what we're looking at, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. It's close. Like it's close for sure. I'm desperate to be in the studio, and just because I don't know. And I think any artist would tell you this. Like I could have released an album 2 years ago or 3 years ago, instantly after the first one, but you just want it to mean something. You want it to be worthwhile. You want it to be something that actually adds to the world instead of just ticking a box. So yeah.
That ain't bad. That's admirable right there. Yeah,
that's fun.
So is that the year album tour? I mean, am I missing anything here?
Probably. I mean, that's my life, isn't it? Just releasing music and going on tour. So yeah, no, I've got plenty to be doing, but yeah, I just want to get on with it. I'm definitely restless. I want to play some shows. I want to release some music, definitely.
No, I will say though, being in New York, not being in Europe, anything, the the soccer, the football, it's very different over here. So I don't know if you're going to be missing that at all. But we get Ted Lasso. That's about the best I can give you.
I know. Yeah, I need to watch that. I've heard good things, but I miss that every day. That was a huge part of like my mental happiness, just having that release all the time. And having that alongside music was very important to me. But yeah, I'll get it back somehow.
Yeah, it's you're in the land of mostly just Yankees, Mets.
Yeah.
Try the other ones out. Well, dude, congratulations on all the success, and again, especially with the latest single, "Better Days." It's such a powerful song. Cannot wait to hear what you got coming up. So yeah,
nice one. Thanks so much.
All right, man. Take care, and thanks for doing this. Yeah.
All the best. Thank you. Bye.
All right.